and that's, my kid can't do no wrong. He got him on videotape. What are you talking about? Well, that ain't him. I've had that happen. He's got the same shoes on,
And they still make excuses.
and it still ain't right. I mean, uh, if you're in that bubble of denial, then there's really much help for that, and you're just uh, raising future
criminals.
people of incarceration. You know,
Yeah.
well, those who can be, uh, brought to the light, they just need a little, training and some encouragement, and let them know, this is it's life is hard, but but you can endure this, and you need to be on the playing field. You need to know who your alderman is. You need to know who have a plan.
Yeah.
Learn. You might not want to participate, but by you existing, you're already on the playing field. Your very first check. When you thought you were gonna get X amount of money, and they took all the taxes out. And then you got like maybe a half or 2/3 of what you thought you was gonna get. And you feel like well, why are they taking this money? Well, they're taking this money because the things that you take for granted have to be paid for.
Yeah.
And everybody got to pay their dues. In other countries, uh, they have a different mindset. Japanese schools, half the time the kids are learning stuff, but they have to participate in cleaning the school. So they learn cleanliness. They learn those types of things. Uh, Everything is not taught in school, which is the other side of that coin. You were asking about the COVID situation. I was going to actually say, uh, COVID was there's always a silver lining in bad situations. It gave people a chance to slow down. It gave people a chance to focus a little bit more because they were like running, doing everything. Now you can't go anywhere. Now you have to deal with yourself, your own thoughts, and maybe decide where you want to go and what you want to do. And there are a lot of jobs and businesses that were created during the COVID thing. So it allowed people to slow down. But other people, like I said, if there's, they just want to think about themselves and they're not thinking about community. Well, we can't worry about them right now, but we'll have to deal with them after we get more people on our, to wake up. And that's
Yes.
basically wake.
That's what time it is. It's time. It's the wake up time. It's the wake up hour. So, you guys are familiar with the recent team takeover. So, what is your recommendation for how we deal with those teenagers?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Or
Ha
well, I'll put it to you like this. I had a partner that worked in 10th district with me, and that was West Side Schools, Roosevelt Road, going south, and they have a lot of Hispanic schools over there. And we used to keep hearing about these parties that were happening during school hours, and kids weren't showing up at school because they were at the parties.
Okay.
So, to make a long story short, we arrested a couple parents.
Oh.
And the next day, truism, the truant thing went from 30 kids to like 6, something like that. So, what did that tell me? That tells me that, you know, yeah, they're gonna have to stop these kids. They're gonna have to do that cards or whatever the case they're gonna do with them if they're in these areas, and they're gonna have there's gonna have to be some type of summons for parents to appear. Now I've known parents, and I understand that it's kind of hard for parents because she might have, you know, uh, 3 or 4 kids, and an older one, and the older one is kind of clowning, so she's trying to take care of the best she can with the younger ones, and and every time you look up, the older was always doing something. Well, it's kind of hard to put more pressure on that type of parent. On the other hand, they used to have what's called wraparound services, and they only lasted as long as a certain individual was in office, and then when they went away,
Right.
they went away. But you need to find out. Everybody's doing something wrong. All these young kids out here jumping on people's cars and all this kind of stuff. You can usually follow that back to a dysfunctional household.
Oh yeah.
And because if you or me did it, we wouldn't have done it. We wouldn't even be associated with somebody who was doing it because we didn't want that information to get back to our folks. Because even if they didn't have the whole story, they had enough to kick our ass. Just by association. And that has seemed to have gone away. Parents are some cases are afraid of their kids.
Yes, she just said that.
And that's because you got too familiar with them.
Yeah.
And how do you turn that around? That's gotta be a lot of therapy talk on that one. And so it's
and then there's a lot also there, yeah. But there's also a lot of children out here that really, really love their parents, but they're walking in that line with children who have no respect for their parent. So, that information needs to go to the schools immediately and the parents should be held accountable. They may not be able to do anything. My mother was held accountable, and I had some terrible people, terrible brothers and stuff acting the fool. But if they call my mother, and back then they come to your house and knock on the door. But if they call my mother, my brothers and them didn't want to see my mother cry. They didn't want to see my mother in agony. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of people that really, really care about somebody calling their mother, telling on them, or, you know what I'm saying? But it is not all of them. A lot of the people who have never done anything, they're followers. So they're following and they get in trouble by following.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. They should, shame was the thing that kept a lot of us in line. And that's something that needs to come back too.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. If we run with the wrong people, we're gonna do stuff just because we want to be cool too. And then we get caught up. My youngest sister got that way one time. They at the end of the school year, and she went to Hyde Park High School, and kids were tearing up some teachers' cars, and she just happened to be standing there instead of flying out, getting the hell out of there. Just like they said, there's gonna be a fight after school, and everybody wants to see the fight, and next thing you know, they're shooting. Back then in the day, they had zip guns and stuff like that. Now these guys are dropping automatic weapons with 60 and 70 rounds dropping on the ground, and that's really kind of disheartening to me.
Yes.
So, where are they getting these weapons? Yeah, they should. Whether it be the gun shops, the gun stores, uh, wherever they get those people should fry.
That's right.
There's got be a lot more on that. You're not keeping your gun proper. Everybody just because you have one doesn't mean you should. If you're not storing your weapon properly and you got little kids shooting each other because you got it in the dresser drawer, it's tragic. You hear that every year. Somebody didn't properly secure their weapon and some kid got hurt, or they grabbed the gun and went out to settle a score. And all that kind of stuff because they had access to it. Now their life is ruined, and whoever they injured with that weapon is also ruined.
That's right. Well, I truly appreciate your sharing that information, Sergeant Dixon, because we have to figure out some way to get the message to these youth that they gotta do something different, because we had a group of teens come out here 2 days ago, and I mean it looked like I know it was more than 100 kids all in one block, and the police were just swarming all over everywhere. And then when they start pulling out the shotguns, and I was like, man,
Why were they pulling out shotguns?
I don't know. They pull them out the trunk and shooting up in the air.
Who? Not the police.
That's what the neighbor told me. I didn't see it, but they said the police were pulling out shotguns and to scare the kids, to make them run, make them get out the area.
Well, see, that's another thing.
And I've seen that, but I've seen that over there on 75th and 75th and between Phillips and Essex. Because guess what? They jumped out, they pulled out because them boys had guns like that in their hands. And they was running in the opposite direction. But the police, if they pull them guns out, 9 times out of 10, they seen something. Either them semi-automatic, if it wasn't but one. But I seen them. I seen the guys that was there. They had automatic weapons, and when the police got out, they went in them trunks and got theirs.
Right. Well, yeah, and under those circumstances, I totally agree. I hate in those situations where a mother or a father, sometimes a father, if you don't do, I'm gonna call the police on you. You know, I had a kid.
They tell them that from babies.
Right. You know, and they had kids that would report card didn't want to come home, and now that missing person report comes out, and the police are looking, they're hiding under the porch or something like that because they're more afraid of the police and getting the tail whip, only because the parent told them that the police are going to lock you up.
Yeah.
Don't make kids afraid of the police, which is my end game on that one. You know, they're supposed to be here to help you. This is not Mayberry, but in a Mayberry type situation, you weren't afraid of the mailman, you weren't afraid of the police officer, you weren't afraid of a lot of adults that could turn around and help you if you needed help. You know, and you know, and I understand, you know, that police were especially in the United States, they were forerunners, or I won't say forerunners, but they had the slave, uh, uh, what do they call them?
They were catching. They were the ones that caught the slaves.
Right, and then they hired a bunch of folks to, you know, take down, you know, black folks and all that kind of stuff. But that's a history, kind of the history of it. But to have somebody to protect you, and that's what the African American Patrolman League and the Guardian Police Association were trying to do, to stand there, to be the bridge, to be sometimes the shield against police brutality. Sometimes, you know, and but you know, educated and informed, you know, folks that we're not your enemies.
Right.
Now, I can see, you know, I mean, in that case, every white person is your enemy, and that's the Bible don't even teach that.
Right.
You know, deal with people on their merit and who they are on an individual basis. Now, yeah, that's systematic stuff, but that's again, you have to deal with that, put it in perspective. You know, and instead of just going wild every time something happens, and you reinforce it when you try to see what they did, see what they did. You know, oh, no. You know, you can't be one dimensional on these things. You know, because it's hard being a police officer. When I was had to be a what do you call it, police ambassador. I know we run out of time here. A police ambassador, and I had to go to the different colleges to see if I can get people to be police officers and sign up. And then I got very little play from that because they were saying we can make more money in the private sector and less headache. It used to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, well, we
got a representative. We got a representative just text me, and they're from the CAP. They've been involved with CAP programs for the last 20-some years, so they'll come on the next show.
Okay, I was just about to say we need to do more shows to figure out how we need to address this issue of the youth what do they call them? Youth, out, I forget the term that they're using when these youth come together.
Takeovers?
Takeovers, youth takeovers. We need to figure out how to eliminate that, because these.
Well, let's go after some of the people that's already involved in it. That's just trying to put the think tanks together to make it happen.
Yeah,
right. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, because there are people there.
No. Yeah, they got people already in position. So we just need to try to.
We need to get in touch with those people, yeah, and try to see what we can do as a collective. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we shall come back tomorrow night on the Woman to Woman show, and we'll decide what we're going to discuss, and we'll get the invitation out. Okay.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed all of this, and I'm looking forward to the next shows.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you, and we'll see you tomorrow.